Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Timeout with Tackle What's Next, where we speak to athletes and executives about how sport has made a difference and changed the course of their lives and the lessons that they've learned in life outside of the game. I'm your host, Danielle Berman Ruiz, and I am the founder and CEO of Tackle What's Next, where we work to change the narrative around life after sports. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking a time out with us tonight. Tonight we are talking to Steve Davis Jr. Steve defines himself as a servant leader, design thinker, director of alumni engagement, author, and athlete transition coach. So we're excited to dive into all these different elements of Steve here. He lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He played 4 years of football at the University of Minnesota, where he also got his bachelor's of mass communications. And now he works at the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, where he oversees engagement for their over 500,000 alumni all over the world. And his role specifically impacts how these alumni are engaged through affinity, athletics, which is a natural tie-in, and also volunteers. So that's great. He's had a wide array of experience in communications, event planning, alumni engagement, and leadership throughout his career journey. And he has done all kinds of different things. But his new initiative is Strive Higher After Sports, which was founded through his own experience transitioning from sports. He really developed a mission and passion for helping other athletes transition to life after. And his mantra for life is strive higher every day. So he continues to really live that out by being a lifelong learner and inspiring others to do the same. So I'm so excited to dive into Strive Higher After Sports, which really focuses on helping athletes design a fulfilled life after the game. So really obviously ties in well here. Steve and his wife have 2 kids as well, so add dad to that list. So we're really excited to chat with him. I see he is here. We're going to bring him up on the screen and dive into everything. Here we go. Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing good. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Thanks for welcoming me.
Oh my goodness, of course. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time out with us. How's everything? How's May going so far for you?
It's getting warm, which is good. Trying to escape the winter weather in Minnesota. Hopefully, we're in the clear now. But it's been good. It's been busy spring, I would say, getting ready for the summer.
That's right. Yeah, I know being part of the Alumni Association, I'm sure spring is busy with graduation and then summer stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's a lot kind of coming at you right now in the peak season here. But yeah, appreciate you taking some time out to chat with us tonight, more on some of your work in the athlete transition space and just your journey as an athlete yourself. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of dive into that with you. And just doing that, would love to start kind of way back at the beginning, kind of if you remember or could kind of talk us through what do you remember what your first sport you played was, what that first experience was like, and talk us through how you found football.
Great question, and first of all, just thanks once again for inviting me in the space. I know it's been a long time coming. We've been talking for the last few years, and
Yeah.
now I'm in this space now. It's just super exciting. For me, like most of us athletes, we started playing very, very young. I believe I started playing sports when I was around 4 or 5 years old. Getting involved in a lot of different things. I was a huge baseball fan. That was my first love, and played baseball for a very, very long time. Got involved in basketball, played soccer, and coincidentally, I did not like football. I played football one time when I was a kid, and really I played because it was the love from my dad. My dad played football. He really wanted me to play, wanted me to get the opportunity to go out there and try. So when I was around 9 years old, I decided to like, all right, I'm gonna go try out for the football team and see what happens. And it was funny because what I didn't like about football at the time when I was there is that the practices were so grueling. We're in the middle of the summer,
Mhm.
outside, playing and practicing and running. It was like the most, excruciating pain and exercises that I've ever experienced at that point. And it's like, wow, I got to do all this just to play a sport. But then as soon as I got into the games, it just kind of naturally fell into place for me. I was playing defensive end at that time, and ended up, doing a lot of positive things that year. So that at the end of the year, I was given an MVP award.
Mm.
Now, I had to wrestle with that too because, like, I didn't realize how good I was until that trophy came, and then everybody really wanted me to continue and stick with it. My dad wanted me to play again the next year. I was
Right.
still so about it. And I decided not to play the next year, even though the coaches really wanted me to do it because I was so involved with basketball and baseball and wanted to stick with that. But it wasn't until high school that I played football again, and I only played is because a bunch of my friends that were going to high school to a different school were talking a lot of crap and saying like, "Oh, you're a nice guy. You can't play football. Like, nobody believes you." And I was like, "Okay, we'll see about that. I'm gonna go out there and we'll play and see what happens."
Yeah.
And I went up to play on the team, and we realized I looked at the schedule and just to see if we were playing against the people that were talking a lot of crap going to a different school, and we weren't. So I almost quit, but my dad made me stick to it. And I end up playing again, getting MVP again, and then after that, the college offers and information started to come my way. So I started to like fall in love with the game and started to follow it through, and it kind of led me, you know, to a successful career of playing football. So
Yeah. I think that's so interesting that it was such a love-hate relationship for you at first, and something you almost didn't do, and kind
yeah,
of had that family pressure of like, come on, just do it, try it, and the friends pressure. I'm sure that many people, especially in Minnesota, are glad that you did and that you stuck with it. But you talked a little bit about the impact it made just in general around the career that you've built, but can you
yeah,
call out some specific ways that football or sports in general have played a role or made an impact on you as a person and who you are now?
yeah. No, I think sports in itself is a melting pot, and for me, I really built like lifelong friends and brothers and mentors with my coaches, and really kind of built on community. It
Hmm.
started for me with sports. I was able to make new friends and connect with people who had different backgrounds, and really kind of take a lot of that with me and how I like go about in life and meet new people. That team atmosphere was something that I felt I needed. I grew up an only child, so sports were
Mm.
like my escape. They were the opportunity for me to learn about life and other people, and it's really helped me to like use those same type of framework and how I go out and connect with people, and try to help learn more about other people's background and cultures because sports is that microcosm of like what community truly is.
Mm.
I see a difference sometimes in the real world where you don't have like that same bond in that community atmosphere that it's hard for people to understand people's differences and their backgrounds and try to work together. But I try to take a lot of those elements with me to help, team atmospheres and environments that I'm in to help them understand how we can work together. And everybody's differences are really what help us to grow and help us to show up a little bit differently. So, sports has been a big part of my life to help me know how to navigate real life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think it's such a unique way of placing that impact on sports, of really helping you build community almost and build this family of a team, right? But
Yeah.
also the fact that you talked about the different backgrounds and learning how to work with people that might not, look the same as you, come from the same places as you, even speak the same language in some cases. I think that's a big part of sport and being on a team and working towards a goal, that it teaches you that, you're gonna have to do again if you get a job, even if you start a business, when you build a family. Like, all these things are with people that did not have the exact
Right.
same background as you did. So it's such a unique way to look at, no matter how high of a level you play sports, it's teaching you this building block of working towards a goal with people, and that ability to communicate is so powerful. So I appreciate you expressing that. And
Yeah.
that microcosm of life and kind of community is such a great metaphor of like what sport is really teaching all of us, right? No matter how
Right.
successful we might be as an individual athlete. So I really love that perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love to, be teammates. And I think if we can teach other people how to be teammates out in the real world, the chaos that we see right now, it just would be a healing process. You hear a lot of athletes say that too. It's like if people just approach life like we did when we were on a team,
Mm-hmm.
like things would be a lot more smoother and people would learn how to work together and get along and move towards the bigger picture together.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It could be absolutely useful for a lot of people in today's world, I think. And now I want to also kind of focus on, the other side of that, right? When you build this team and you have this group of people and you work towards these goals, that can make it harder to leave that space. So as we're talking about and as you're building, your world of working with athletes around transition, I'd love to hear around about what your athletic transition and kind of stepping out of sports was like for you. If you have examples of things that maybe you knew you wanted to do, or if it was a surprise, if you could just talk us through what that journey was like for you, and how you figured out what was coming, what you were getting into
Yeah,
next.
yeah. I mean, for me, and I feel like the same is for a lot of athletes. Like we put a lot of our time and energy, especially I started playing when I was 4, playing a sport
Mm-hmm.
and building this identity of being an athlete and using that to kind of keep you going, being fulfilled in that space, getting structure, having that community, being in those environments that help push you and help you achieve a lot of different things to all of a sudden that is gone. For me, it came at a point where I wasn't expecting it to end so quickly. Um, you couldn't have told me that I wasn't going to make the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like most athletes, they probably think the same thing. That 3% of the college athletes that are going to make it pro, you're probably thinking I'm that 3%, right?
Right.
And when it kind of ended unexpectedly without me getting my name called from the NFL and me trying to still figure out if there's other routes and then seemingly seeing that there wasn't any more football in my life, it was hard. It was something that really forced me to dig deep into myself and try to figure out who am I outside of sports, because sports were a big part of me, still a big part of me. But how do I take what I've learned and try to go out and navigate life, especially given that nobody really taught you the aspects of life outside of sports. They didn't teach you how to go and find a job or how to, do an interview or find a place to live, about
Mm-hmm.
taxes, all these different things that, I wasn't prepared for at all. And it sucked because it felt like to a certain point, I was a part of a team and then I just got pushed out into the wolves and that team atmosphere wasn't there for me anymore. I had to do it alone and that was hard. It took a lot of, like I say, digging, but I was depressed. I was down and out for a while, just trying to figure out what's next.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think for a lot of athletes that go through that transition, it's tough to navigate because you have built this persona, you've built this way of life, and you've been giving a lot of support up until that point. And then now you got to go out and try to do it by yourself out in the real world without a lot of soft skills and things to navigate. At the time, I couldn't do internships. These kids nowadays, the NIL, they get a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah.
But even still, there's not a lot of preparation for the things that most college students may get. So it was definitely a hard road to try to figure out. And I struggled for a while just to, move on and find a job, figure out who I was, to be honest with you. I thought I was trying to, do some stuff in graphic design. I got my degree in graphic design and mass communications, but I quickly learned, even when I was trying to do some of that stuff, that I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and I see this a lot with college graduates. They get their degree and they go out into the real world and they start doing, what they got their degree in, but then they also realize, wait a minute, I'm not liking this at
Mm-hmm.
all. I want to switch this up. And then they go back and get another degree, or they try to find a different job. And
Yeah.
I would say about only 30% of the graduates right now are actually in a field that is part of the, the degree that they got. So that was something different for me too. It's like I thought
Hmm.
this was going to be my ticket, but I don't like this. I got to figure something else out. So a lot of that is some of the things that I just had to figure out, and it really started to click for me when I started connecting with people. So I try to reestablish that community
Hmm.
aspect out in the real world, by leaning into other former players, specifically former players from the U of M, and just learning about their experience, learning about how they've navigated the transition,
Right.
what they're doing, and having those type of conversations landed me my first job. So it's just like, okay, light bulb moment, let's try to do more of this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, I appreciate you sharing all that because I think, a lot of athletes have probably experienced a similar feeling of, you can't think you're not going to the next level or that your career is going to end. Very few really have that kind of time and sense of like, oh, I think I'm ready. I think I'm done. And even that's a hard decision. But when it's not your choice or not your decision at all, it can really be hard, like you said, and just kind of pushes you off the cliff, almost like, okay, here you go. So you talked about not necessarily being prepared, and I think in some ways that team environment is great, and in other ways it can isolate you from what to prepare for after, because the real world is not structured. There's no team meetings every morning where you're like, okay, here's the plan for today and here's what to do. And so it can feel really disorienting for anyone in a structured environment, athletes, probably veterans, other people that come from this like big team organization kind of focus. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then I love that you talked about the connections that you were trying to recreate that community, and that's where you kind of started to see some light kind of coming through, where it was like, okay, I'm not here by myself. People are also kind of going through similar things. I can ask for help. I can kind of figure out these connections. I think that's a great piece of learning for others that might be in that space of kind of going, well, where do I even start? It could just be as simple as like reaching out, it sounds like, to a fellow teammate or to an alumni of your university, or even another athlete that you know in a different sport or a different school, that maybe has come before you and gone through this, to ask, how they navigated it. And that could even just be helpful to feel less alone in the process. Did I kind of interpret that right? Is that kind of how you
yeah,
felt? Yeah.
yeah, most definitely. I mean, that community aspect is something that you can take with you, and that's
Hmm.
something that I try to tell athletes now. It's like you have this support network around you, and you've been in this team atmosphere. The secret to life is keeping that and growing that, because it's really not about what you know. It's truly about who you know. And they talk about it a lot, but I've experienced it so many times in my life, and I really think it is very valuable. Like, the relationships are
Hmm.
currency,
Hmm.
and building on those relationships and having those relationships, um, helps you in so many different ways, not just with your job, but just gives you things and nuggets that can help you navigate life,
Yeah.
and just support, because, it's hard to do it by yourself. We're not meant to do things alone. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
100%. I think that's so true, and I love that you kind of say like you can take that piece with you. Sports giving you this tool that you can bring into other things, and we all need community, like you said, and now it sounds like you are actually trying to build a community for those coming after you in terms of helping them with that. So, I want to know too, what inspired you or kind of helped you push forward this strive higher after sports movement that you're building.
Yeah.
What motivated you to create this kind of? I know it's been in the kind of formation for a while, but tell us what you're doing and what kind of instigated the creation of it. It's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the experience that I had in my own transition, and noticing how there are many other athletes that, at that time and even now, they're still going through their own transition,
Hmm.
and there's not a lot of resources or support, that is provided to them in that transition. It's kind of like you are a product that is used very well on the shelf, and then once you expire, they kind of move on and put a new product on the
Yeah.
shelf. So I really felt that I can be of support in this space, because I've learned how to navigate life, using community, using a bias towards, action and experiencing things to make adjustments. It's kind of like you run a play and the play doesn't work, so you call an audible
Mm-hmm.
and you make an adjustment so that you can figure out how to score that touchdown. I've tried to use that same methodology in, how life has kind of, taken form.
Yeah.
And the experiences, they show up differently. But you can always take something from it. You can always learn from it. So I've really focused on how I've used some of the things that I've learned to grow in myself, but how can I pay that forward and support others and be a resource in the space where a lot of athletes don't know where the resources are, especially given that I've experienced it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other people just like me that are out here trying to do the same thing. They've experienced that transition themselves and they know the pain that it goes through for everybody, and they want to support that. They want to help, provide some resources so the athlete does not have to do that by themselves. Well, me specifically, I've used a lot of design thinking because I got graphic design as my background. I had this bias towards action. I learned more about this methodology of designing your life, when I came to the U of M, and found out that it's very similar to how I think and how I approach things. So I've taken a lot of those concepts to help others create the life that they want to live and be fulfilled and bring joy to themselves, outside of just one track.
Yeah.
Not just about having a fulfilling career, but having fulfilling life and the balance of the things that you enjoy, the relationships that you hold, the things that keep you mentally stable and fit and things like that. Because a lot of the different, I would say, the gauges of our lives change, especially when we're done playing sports. And a lot of us want to focus on, well, I got to get to feel successful again by getting in the role that's going to make me, have the money that I thought I was going to have and feel important. But that's only one aspect. And a lot of athletes that do go on that pathway and just have a great career, they're still missing some other side. So I think about this as, how can I help you design a fulfilling life in all aspects and really give you a framework that will help you continue to evolve, help you to continue to seek growth, help you to continue to evaluate where you
Yeah.
are and if it's in alignment with who you want to be. So that's really what Strive Higher at the Sports is about. It's, really kind of helping those athletes develop, all the different gauges that bring them joy and keep that going. And obviously, more than an athlete is a saying that it's out there a lot, but I truly believe we are more than athletes. We will always have that identity, but it's not our only
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful because I think a lot of times people try to address the transition with career as the solution, right? Oh, we'll help you get a job and all will be fine and you'll feel much more grounded and purposeful. And I love that that's not necessarily not a part of what you're doing, but it's not the whole part because I think a lot of times athletes also think if I just get that job, if I just get, and a lot of times you need that job, right? You got to provide for your family, you got bills to pay, like we all do. I get that. But I love that you mentioned you just might not still feel fulfilled with that job. And I think a lot of times, especially athletes, because you've had this career that's so motivating, inspiring, you love it so much, you expect that every job after this is going to have that same, like, I love it. I go to work every day with a big smile on my face. Even the bad days aren't that bad because I love my job. Like a lot of people don't have that, and you may find that you have a job for a while that isn't necessarily your whole purpose for being, and that's normal and fine. But it takes an adjustment, right? For you to think, okay, this isn't all that I am. This is just a job. This is something
Yeah.
I'm doing. And, I love that you said like an athlete is just a piece of you. And I think that's something we need to have more and more in discussion of is like, okay, great. You play football, you play basketball, great. What else? Tell me more. Like that's really awesome. You're very good at it. I see that. But like tell me more about yourself. I want to know who you are, not what you're good at, right? Because I think that's where we focus a lot of our efforts into the job, into what we do and what we can create or produce. So I love the emphasis on like your life and that you mentioned you're giving them the tools to like shape it as they grow because you're going to change, right? And your priorities are going to change. So I think that's really powerful Because I think a lot of times people also think this is like a one-time transition that you're done, you get that job or you get that next piece, and you're like, all right, I'm rocking and rolling, I'm good to go for the next 50 years.
No.
Like, nope, probably gonna have to keep transitioning and changing and doing all these things. So I love that this is something that also grows with them as they mature or as they kind of find new passions
Yeah.
or start a family or whatever it is, move to a new place, any kind of transition. It sounds like it can help them navigate that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's like the design thinking methodology. Like, think about your phone, right? You got your phone, and the developers of that phone, they create a lot of great features on that phone, and they have a lot of users using that phone. But then eventually, they learn what are some things that people don't like and what people do like, and they make an upgrade. So
Mm-hmm.
they give you an upgrade on your phone. And then sometimes the phone has so much of an upgrade that they have a new version of that phone. So your life can be very similar in that approach of taking in a lot of the data, paying attention to the things that are around you, what you like, what you don't like, how do you fulfill yourself more in that joy meter, and then seeking that evolution because you're going to grow. You're not going to be the same person you were in your 20s. You're going to be different. You're going to show up differently. You're
Yeah.
going to learn how to do things differently. And giving you a framework to help approach that is what I'm trying to help athletes take upon so that they not just only transition well, but they can continue to evolve as they go out in life. Because you got a lot of life to live after you're done playing sports. So
Yeah. It's really important, and I'm so glad that you're doing this work. And you mentioned that there are others out there doing it too. And I think that, with so many new opportunities available to athletes now, you mentioned NIL and different things. I think it's so important to build the whole person and to help these young people, especially, kind of come up with this idea that an athletic skill set is just a piece of who they are, but they have all these other opportunities. And you mentioned it earlier, just the ability to kind of use sport the way they're using you, that product reference you mentioned of like putting them on the shelf and then moving on to the next is like, how do you suck all the good stuff, connections, opportunities, learnings from sport before you're off the shelf and know that that's coming, right? Like, kind of look at it as like, how do I maximize my opportunities while I'm here? Is something that, it's not selfish. It's doing your due diligence to say, hey, I made it here. I'm in college. I'm playing
yeah,
sports. Let's try to maximize my connections, my opportunities to do NIL deals, whatever that looks like. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you felt like you did outside of reaching out to kind of some folks to chat that helped you with that transition. If there's anything you would recommend, or even that you work with some of the folks you work with Strive Higher, around setting yourself up for success while you're still playing. Is there anything that, folks can really do to
yeah.
start thinking about that
I
differently?
think one is like get rid of that dysfunctional belief that it's a plan B and it's a distraction from the plan A.
Mm,
Because honestly, if you think about it, it's inevitable that your sport is going to end. And more than likely, it's going to end when you're in your 20s. The average lifespan is close to 80. So if you're fortunate enough to live that long, there's a lot of life to live. So why not prepare for the long term while you're still in the short term? I had a conversation with some players getting ready for the NFL, and that was the message that I gave them. It's like you're preparing for a very pivotal moment in your life. Whether you make it, whether you have long-term success, or whether you don't make it, you still have an opportunity right now. There's a bunch of resources around you. People are supporting you. How do you take advantage of this now? And it's not a distraction to say, I want to prepare myself to have the best life I can have while also being the best player that I can be. You can do both at the same time. And it's not a bad thing. I call it this, it's the A1 and the
mm,
A2. You can do both of those things. That's one piece of advice that I'm trying to really push because I think a lot of us think, well, I'm not worried about that right now. I'll get to that. That's my plan B. I got to focus on what I got to do on the field, on the court, on the track, whatever that may be. Um, but really kind of opening up the perspective, like it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You are inevitably going to be in that space. Why not
yeah,
prepare for it now? You know,
exactly.
and the other part is, I talk about community because I'm big on community. And one thing that I wish I would have did a better job of sooner is really taking advantage of not only like the connections that I have with my teammates, but all the people that were supporting me around that time. You
Yeah.
know, you got staff, you got mentors that you develop, you know, relationships that you probably developed on campus or even a part of the team. And then when you get done, it's like you're trying to figure it out on your own. You kind of isolate yourself and you don't know what everybody else is going through, but you're going through your own stuff. So you just kind of shy away from seeking out help or leaning into community. Your parents are trying to help you, but you know sometimes your parents maybe don't understand what you're
Yeah.
going through. So you kind of shy away from that support, but that support is what made you successful. Like you had all those people around you pushing you. You had all those people around you being authentic and telling you the
Hmm.
truth about yourself, and helping you to get out of your own mind, get out of your own way to be better, to grow, to learn, and keeping that same aspect with you in life is essential, I think. And you don't have to start from ground zero though. You got a lot of that already now. So how do you take some of that with you and just being prepared? Like, okay, this is still going to hurt a little bit. That transition is going to be, a rough patch, but you don't have to do it by yourself. There's people around you who want you to succeed, who have their best interests in heart, and keep them close and
Yeah.
reevaluate your circle too. Like you can't keep the friends around you that was doing the same thing when you were back in the hood and now you're graduating. Like no, you gotta evolve. But
Hmm.
that community aspect is important. So those are the two things that I really try to tell people now.
Yeah, it's really good advice. I mean, obviously the community piece is so powerful, and like we talked about, it can really help just talking to people about what you're going through. Like you said, it got you kind of connected into a job opportunity, early on. And then I also love the concept of not a plan B, right? I always call it like the next plan. It's like it's not an if, it's a when.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a next plan. So I love the plan 1A or plan A1 and A2 because you're so right. If we can separate this idea of planning for your life and just being growing as a whole person is negative for your sport, I just no one's really found the evidence that that's true. And again, it's one thing if the distractions are more in a partying kind of nature. That's very different than I'm doing a job interview or a shadow day at a company. I don't think that's really too distracting as long as you're meeting your obligations. But it also takes the pressure off of you and your performance as an athlete because you're giving an outlet to an interest that you have. So I always like to say, like, if you have a bad day on the field and that's all you got, you have a really bad day, right? But if you had a bad day on the field, but you had a great conversation with Steve about your interest in this field, that's something you can hold on to and say, yeah, that wasn't great, I'll be better tomorrow, but I had a really nice conversation with Steve today about what I want to get into in this career path, and he gave me some great advice, so I'm going to hold on to that. So it just gives you more to kind of grasp onto and say, like, yeah, this part of my day didn't go well, but that's not the whole part of my day. Just like you're talking about with like the whole part of yourself, like there's more
Mm-hmm.
to you than just your performance. So I love that. Like it actually kind of helps you, like you said, kind of having this next plan or plan A2,
Yeah.
that they can kind of push forward at the same time. Because yeah, you're wasting time at this point. It's an opportunity cost too of like waiting until you're done. I'm not going to worry about it now. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, well, you
Yeah.
have a couple years here where you could really maximize those connections and community that you're talking about. So I love both those pieces of advice. And I'm sure the athletes working with you will be taking advantage of some of this because it sounds like you're giving them really good feedback based on your own experience too.
Yeah.
And I want to give you a chance to tell us how to get involved in what's next, but I know we're getting close to the end here, and I wanted to just I recognize that it's Mental Health Awareness Month while we're talking. Obviously, a lot of athletes battle a lot of mental health struggles from whether it's performance anxiety or just that pressure we just talked about, but also that kind of fall off the cliff moment. So
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you just how you prioritize your mental health on a regular basis and any advice to athletes maybe going through that transition on how to prioritize themselves from a mental perspective.
Yeah. This is a really great question. Timing, timely with the month. I think
Hmm.
for a lot of us, we get into that state. where, like I said, you're isolating yourself and you get very depressed mentally. And it takes a lot to overcome the voices that are in your head, calling yourself a failure, saying that you can't do this, all these different things. I've always been a person of like a positive mindset, but I will be honest with you to say that I do sometimes also struggle with those voices that come in your head that give you doubt. What I do a lot of is now is a lot of meditation, praying. But one thing that I'm truly excited about doing right now is I actually in this coaching program for positive intelligence and really developing the muscle of attacking your saboteurs in your
Mm,
mind that are voices that basically say, you can't do this, you can't do this, or they are an extreme version of the things that make you you. I'm an achiever. So if I'm not achieving, my saboteurs are telling me you're not achieving enough. Things like that, right? And shifting your mind to a standpoint of being able to be in your sage perspective, which kind of gives you a little bit more control, a little bit more positivity, and really giving you a little bit of a shift to approach
mm,
life. I'm a positive person in general, and I want to be able to support people and also give them tools that they can use to help in their own lives, because I know we're all going to be facing those times where we're going consistently at something and then we hit a block. And then when you hit that block, how do you navigate that? How do you take a lot of that mental capacity and give yourself assurance, give yourself that positive belief that you can do it because you probably did it before. If you look at it, being an athlete, you achieved a lot of different things. In life, it's going to be hard to sometimes look at it that way because life is different and there are things that you're going to fail with, and that's a that's going to happen.
yeah.
But the way you approach it and respond from it is really going to help you figure out how to stay resilient like you did when you played in your sport. Like you got knocked down, you didn't meet your rep, you got yelled at by the coach, you missed an assignment. But what'd you do after that? You figured out how to get better so that didn't happen again. So I try to think about, from a mental standpoint, like not holding myself back
Mm,
from going forward and continue to show up and continue to grow, but also learning from the situations rather than thinking about, oh man, I failed, or oh man, you did not achieve this, or oh man, this was not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Life's not perfect. And trying to get more into that mindset of what is it that I'm learning from this?
yeah.
What is the knowledge that I've gained? What can I grow in myself to become more powerful in this situation? What is the inspiration that I'm gaining from this whole experience that's going to help me grow into life? And I want to give other athletes that same type of tool set so that when they're facing mental challenges in life, which are bound to happen, they have some opportunities to learn how to navigate that and continue to move forward like they did when they played their
Mm,
sport.
yeah, such a great answer. And I love the idea of, thinking positive, but going beyond that and just taking the voices in your head and really trying to get them to be less influential on how you perceive yourself, right? They're never going to go away. They're probably going to crop up. Like you said, you're very positive, you do a lot of work here, they still pop up. But how do we navigate, how do we respond, and how do we continue to move forward despite what those voices are saying is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And I think that you continue to come back to throughout this interview, just the concept of like continuing to work on it and work and like put effort into it,
Strive
and to have the
hard.
tools, right? To have the tools to like
Yep,
keep going. And I think
yep.
that's so important to remember that life is a journey and that you're never done. And so, taking breaks is great because guess what? You got to get back up tomorrow and do stuff. Like it doesn't all have to get done today, but also, we're never done working. We can always improve. So I love that like growth mindset, positive thinking spin on that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're getting to the end, and you've shared so many pieces of advice and tidbits and insights for folks. I know they're really going to appreciate this episode, but I want to also have you share what's coming up for you. If people want
Yeah.
to connect with you, get involved with Strive Higher After Sports and connect, follow, become a client of yours, how do they get involved? How do they work with you? How do they
Yeah.
find you? And plug anything you'd like here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely follow on Instagram, shed_avenue, but also follow me on LinkedIn because that's where I'm really pushing a lot of some of the stuff that I'm doing out there. I have some great. It's been fun so far, but I have some fun opportunities coming up. One that I really want to highlight is that we've been talking a lot about that transition period and those seeking help. I know that that is hard to do when you're an athlete in that space, and sometimes you're not looking for help, or you may not have the means to get help, which is why it's crucial to be able to provide some resources to meet the athletes where they're at. I'm happy to be in partnership with the organization Athlete Soul, that really is a nonprofit of former athletes supporting athletes and providing services at no
Mm-hmm.
cost to the athlete. We have a scholarship that is available for any athlete who is in the period of transitioning out of their sport or may have transitioned out of their sport in the last 5 years to get transition coaching at no cost. And I'm trying to put that out there for a lot of athletes that are in this period of transition so that they can get the support and also be part of community.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, whenever we're going through any coaching, we're also connecting you to the broader breadth of our athlete community who have either gone through that experience, going through it now, and you don't have to feel like you're alone. That's my biggest thing. I want you to feel like you have somebody that's supporting you, that understands you, that's been there, and taking advantage of the free resources that are available, which I did not
Yeah.
have. I wish I did have. So that's one thing. The other thing, I have a couple of conferences I'm going to. I'm excited about. One is the Player Development Conference. That's next week. It's a conference with a lot of player development staff around the country that work with athletes and trying to give them a little life skills. Trying to work with them and network and kind of showcase some of the stuff that I'm doing, as well as the space of athlete transition that can be a part of that. And then I also got an invite to go out to a conference called AthleteCon, which is a conference that's really focused on athlete branding and NIL, but also kind of giving them exposure to their own personal development, getting an opportunity to talk to athletes, but also some of these organizations that are trying to create, positive momentum for the athlete's brand and identity. So, excited about those two things coming up, but also just looking to continue to build awareness. Obviously, anybody's looking for help and support in transition, for transition coaching, but also can go and talk to organizations and kind of share my story, do some workshops to help the athletes start to ideate and come up with different things that they want to do in their transition, and really just kind of continue to move forward. The last thing I'll say is, if you're in Minnesota, though, one thing that I have noticed in the last couple conversations I've had with some athletes is that one piece of tangible skills that we don't have is networking.
Mm.
What is networking? How to do it? And going into a room full of a bunch of people you don't know, you kind of like hide in the corner. I am looking to do a special event this summer, really focusing on not networking, but community and how to build community, and giving people a little bit of the tidbits and advice that I wish I would have had going out of college, and helping them prepare, but also practice with each
Yeah.
other, so that they can go into rooms and not feel intimidated. And they can go in there knowing that they have something to offer as well, and they have something to learn. So, I mean, I'm excited about all these different things, and you can probably tell I don't sleep a lot, but
Yeah, you stay very busy, but all those events sound amazing. And please keep us
yeah,
posted. If you have links, we can share around to our network if they want them. And we love Athletes Soul, so I'm glad you're working with them. They are fantastic.
yeah,
And yeah, that event sounds really powerful that you're working on in Minnesota, because networking is a tough skill to learn if you aren't doing it, as you go. And college usually is when people really start, and when you're an athlete, you don't have a lot of time in college to do that kind of stuff. So that's really
right.
powerful. I think it will be really helpful. So please keep us posted as you get that together. We'll share it around to those in the
Cool.
area. But yeah, Steve, thanks again for taking so much time with us. Thanks for being here and sharing so many pieces of advice, your experience, your journey. It was really awesome. And I know people that tuned in and that are, are going to tune in later will get a lot out of it. So we'll
Yeah,
link to all of your website and social handles, your LinkedIn into our show notes. And, we definitely will encourage people right now, go follow Shed_Av on Twitter and Instagram and follow and connect with Steve on LinkedIn. But yeah, Steve, thanks for taking the time with us. It was awesome to have you.
no, no doubt. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm excited that we finally got this opportunity to connect in this way and kind of share a little bit more of what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
just, I love what you're doing as well. So,
Well,
yeah,
thank you. Thanks for the support and yeah, thanks for keeping in touch, the networking piece, as we got this going. So, definitely networking is always a good skill to have as you continue to build things. So, yeah, thanks
yeah,
for making this happen and yeah, we appreciate your time. And yeah, everyone go check out Strive Higher After Sports and be sure to check out some of these events that Steve will be speaking at. So, Steve, thanks for the time.
yeah,
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time on Time Out with Tackle What's Next. Thanks again, Steve.
yeah, no problem.
Bye bye.